Welcome to the Renaissance Achiever with Sarah Fui. And today we have special guest Dorothy May with us from Brisbane, Australia.
I love how you say it, Brisbane. I love
I don't even know how to. I've only ever seen it written. I don't even know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Brisbane. It's very
Brisbane.
Australian as well, how I'm saying it. Brisbane.
Okay. I don't even know how Americans say it, to be honest. But Dorothy May is a multidisciplinary creative, a comedian, singer songwriter, coach, and producer. And I'm so excited to talk with you today. It's our first time really chatting live because we've been following each other on social media for a couple years, but it's our first live chat. So this is fun.
Yeah.
Um, I went to my first stand-up comedy show last week, and that's where I got the idea. I was like, I need to talk to Dot about this. And I've always told people I think that stand-up comedy is the most vulnerable form of art.
Mhm.
Like, art is so subjective to begin with, whether someone's going to like it or not. And then humor is even more niche. Like, are you going to think this is funny or not? Is this relatable or not to my crowd? And who's going to be in my crowd? And when it's a really small audience, it's just like, such a hit or miss, and it's live. They're reviewing your art live with you standing in front of them, and if they don't like it, it's just really awkward and you're just like, okay, and the show must go on. And so I just have so much respect for that. So I'd love to hear how you got into that art form and what you love about it.
Oh my gosh, what a great question. You're amazing. Thank you for the chat, by the way. I'm so excited to get to know you this way.
Yes.
What got me into it? Honestly, I was going through a really tough period. Uh, at the time, I had nothing going on. My roots had been quite disconnected from art and expression for a while, like several years. And I was just at a pub one day and they had stand up comedy on that night. And I saw a couple of young blokes get up and just, tell their story and try to crack a few jokes. And it just occurred to me, I was like, oh, I never even thought of this as an option. And it was just like a light bulb moment. And then from there, I just looked around to see what open mics and things might have been available around the area, and then started to go and just watch a lot of them. It was really interesting because for me, as an entertainer and performer, I don't know, you might think that I would have just jumped up on the stage straight away, but I was just, at that time in my life, I was just more interested in watching. I just wanted to go to them all and hear about different people and their life experiences. And what I loved so much was that you could laugh and you were meant to. I actually kind of really fell in love with it as an audience member because of the freedom of expression, of just opening my mouth and just feeling my full body vibrate as I laughed out loud. I just loved it so much. And it was almost this healing thing that I took on at the time where I was like, Dot, whenever you go to comedy, just let it out. Just let it release. Don't hold back with your laughter. Let it be big.
It's like a form of therapy.
It was. And I was struggling so
Yeah.
much with so many things at the time that it felt so good to laugh so loud and to also see that that was exactly what the comedian needed as well on stage. They responded to it and it helped the rest of the crowd loosen up and laugh out loud. And so my love for stand-up comedy actually really started from a love of laughing myself and having a safe place to just laugh and laugh really loud and obnoxiously in a way that felt okay, because that was the responsibility. It was like I took my job as an audience member seriously.
Yes. Yes. That is the supportive thing to do, is to laugh out loud. I love it.
It was for me though, it was so about me at the time. I was just laughing, letting myself laugh big for me because it just felt so good.
It was like a liberating thing.
Yeah, so good.
So how did you transition from observing to being like, I'm going to get on the stage?
I think it sort of took a long time as well watching for me to kind of even consider what I might say, what I would want to say. And then I think even when I did start to get up here or there, I didn't really know what to say or feel passionately about anything or even have a perspective that I thought was important. I just, as a performer in the past, I was like, oh, I do want to feel that rush of getting on stage and just having people listen. And so that sort of drew me to do it here or there. But I didn't do it a lot at that time. It was a little bit here and there. And I was just more curious than anything. And I think a lot of comics around me at that time thought there was something really odd about me because I wouldn't do it that often. I would often just go and watch a lot. And then I might do like 1 5-minute spot in 6 months.
I love it.
And
Just
people
get up
would,
there.
yeah, and people would like, I don't know, I think people assumed a lot about that. I felt very like judged as well at the time. But it was interesting to experience the judgment while not caring because I could feel that a lot of the judgment was like, oh, you're not confident or you're not purposeful or what are you doing? But it was just interesting to me because I knew in my heart it was very purposeful. For me at that point in time, my purpose was really listening and taking in everything that was happening around me.
I love it. It's like you're doing this art for you. You're not trying
Yeah.
to prove anything. You're not like, I have to get my own show. I have to be the
Mm-hmm.
best comedian. You're like, I just feel like going up and expressing, and I'm going to do that. And now I'm going to sit back and enjoy. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm not trying to be really setting a goal or really ambitious about it. It's just enjoying the art form. I love
Yeah.
that. That's how we should be living. That's how art
Yeah.
should be, right?
Yeah. And I
So
learned
cool.
so much. I think the bulk of my learning came from just watching and taking it in and asking those internal questions. Why is everyone joking about this right now? Or why is that person really funny? What are they doing that's really clever? Or
You were studying. You were
yeah,
really
I
studying.
was. I was like, why is that person even on the stage in the first place? What's bringing them to the stage? Is it that they're insecure and they
Mm.
need attention right now? Or is it that, or is it that they genuinely love the feeling of hearing laughter? Is it that they've got unexpressed things that they need to say and right now no one else is listening to
Mm.
them? I found that all fascinating as well.
You like to psychoanalyze comedians as well, huh?
Big time. Yeah, like it's part of the craft, I think.
I think that's cool. It's not just the comedy you're interested in the humanity or the stories behind this person and what's their motivators.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I was just talking to my husband after the show and like what made a good skit was you can tell a really skilled comedian will have like really cohesive jokes where it flows together with a storyline or theme or plot. And not only is it intellectual a little bit, where it's not just about the jokes, but the punchlines are thrown in there. There's some that are just random jokes and it's okay, but the really clever ones are really they're writers. They're not just
Mm-hmm.
comics, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was also something for me too in the early moments is I didn't really want to take up people's attention and stage time if I didn't kind of know what I was doing up there. And I don't mean like cracking the actual jokes or whatever, because anyone can get up and tell a fart joke. But it was more like I also wanted to take time to work out what I want to say. Why am I in this room wanting to share? What do I want to share? It took a long time to kind of like feel into that. And then also bridge the gap between what you want to share and being funny. Because just like you said, really great comedians have the narrative, have the purpose, have something to say. And then the humor and the jokes are pretty much secondary to that.
Yeah.
They come through that form, as opposed to the other way around where you've got a bunch of jokes and then you're like, where do I put the story and where do I put the meaning and the purpose kind of thing.
There's just so many aspects to it. And then there's the delivery, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you deliver it. I mean, there's just so many different aspects that go into it. So mad respect for that. And I know that you used to coach other people who are interested in doing stand-up comedy. Tell me a little bit about that, what that program was. And
Yeah, I did that for about 4 years, and that program really changed over time. It started out as a very general comedy class online while we were all in lockdown during COVID, in 2020. And then Actually, some of the students at the time, one of them suggested that they wanted to explore stand-up more. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I used to do that for several years, and I had a little bit of a break from it. But I was like, yeah, sure, let's dive in. Why not? From there, it was just like this really exciting opportunity for me to explore what makes something funny. Several years earlier, I'd already been doing like clowning workshops and humor improvisational type workshops with the same intention, which was to just uncover what makes something funny and how we get into that energy and what it is.
Were
And
you
then,
going to these workshops or were you
no,
leading
running
them?
them.
You were running them. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I have a very different approach to teaching. I think a lot of people, I think the very Western approach to education and teaching is that you are already a master at the craft and then you step in to teach others. I think teaching is the most exciting and the best when you're learning as you teach and when you're studying something and you teach as you go. So whatever you're studying and learning at the time, you utilize that opportunity with a group of people and you share it and you find the nuance and the expertise within it with the group of people as you teach them.
I love that. And aren't we always all learning anyways,
100%.
right? Like, when are you really the master? And I think
100%.
being open to continually learning and exploring really pushes you. When I have these people I'm responsible for learning with, it pushes you to learn more, right?
It also means that when you're doing that and you're just focusing on what you're learning and studying at the time and sharing and teaching that, it also means that there's a much more natural humility to how you approach the
Yeah.
teaching. That can be really hard to do when you're already at the very end of mastering a process and then trying to dig into the experience of what it's like to be discovering it for the first time or new to something.
Sometimes they forget when they're way up
100%.
here, right? They don't know how
Yeah.
to translate it anymore. And I
Yeah.
remember taking coaching, courses on online coaching and business and things like that. And
Yeah.
they say, a lot of people think you have to be a level 10 in order to teach someone who's at a level 2, but really you just
Yeah.
have to be a 3 or 4. As
100%.
long as you're 1 or 2 steps ahead of them, you can still teach them. And it's actually more relatable because they're like, that person is so far up there. Like, I don't even know if they can understand what I'm going through right now, or they're so rich and successful. But if you're just a little above them, they're like, okay, I trust you because I see you doing this work, right?
Yeah.
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 So that's kind of how you were teaching as you
Yeah.
were exploring comedy yourself.
Yeah. And I was just studying it, and so all my time away from it, I was like exploring it, and then I became really obsessed with finding out. I wanted to just pull a method out of comedy, like when you think about mathematics or science, I have equations for things. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, there's got to be an equation and like a really simple method for comedy. And I was more interested in discovering what that would be for myself than looking up books and finding what someone else had decided that was. I was definitely reading books
Mm.
from other comedians and writers and educators in the field, but I was like, I feel like there's something that hasn't been touched yet. I feel like there's something that we need in this field that hasn't been outlined the way that I need it to be outlined. And then
That,
yeah, it was really cool. It just felt like a really like revolutionary
yes.
opportunity to make my mark in the space.
That is
And
the definition of a Renaissance achiever, which is the name of
yeah,
this podcast. That's a Renaissance achiever mood. I'm going to create this formula and self discover what works for me. That's so
yeah.
cool.
And then so
Yeah.
over time, what that looked like for me was, I believe it's 7 or 8. I can't remember because it's been a little while since I've looked at my books. I think it was 8 comedic devices that I came up with because I was looking at the full spectrum of comedy and the kinds of jokes that are created. And I was like, how many different ways of approaching comedy are there? When you look at what makes someone laugh, if you've got something like surprise, say, and you go, okay, I also think that there's more work to be done in the pyramid of how it all fits together, but I haven't done that yet. I'll say that for later. But I feel like surprise is the bedrock of comedy. If you look at the other comedic devices that I sort of coined, they all filter into surprise as well. Because when we're looking at just like the basic human response of humor, the thing that's required in order to make people laugh is to be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're surprised and someone says something that we just don't expect, or they do something that we just don't expect, that will trigger laughter from us because it sort of jolts us, and that's the physiological response. So you have surprise, but then you have, within that, then you can kind of explore the different kinds of surprise.
I've never made that connection, but that is so true.
Yeah.
Humor is being surprised, and that's how we react. And it's like the opposite of fear, because when you're
Yeah.
surprised, you can either be scared or you can
Yeah.
think it's funny.
Well, a lot
So
of
crazy.
comedians and comedy people, they'll talk about tension and release, which
Mm.
is a similar thing. So, you know, when we're surprised by something, there's that physiological response. We tense up, and then once we
Mm-hmm.
realize it's safe, we release.
And
And so,
release it in laughter.
yeah, so almost it's
So
the
cool.
delight of not dying. It's the delight of being like, oh God,
I'm still
I'm
alive.
alive. Oh wait, I'm still
That is so interesting. That
here.
is
It's
so
so cool,
interesting.
huh? So there are different kinds of surprise, as in there are different ways that we can garner surprise. And so then I tried to work out what are the different ways that we surprise each other, and see if I could come up with some labels that would be all encompassing across the board, so that we touch on everything, so that as a comedian they can kind of look at these devices, delve into them, understand them, and then know that whenever they need to create something funny, or whenever something is funny, it fits into this system. Because there was a lot of doubt I was dealing with at the time as well about understanding my craft, about being good enough or being worthy. And by having a system that I could count on that made sense to me, that was proven and there was evidence for, I could always come back to that every day and be like, I got something to lean on. Like, I got a system here.
You're not just pulling it out of the air. Yeah,
Yes,
you
like
have
there are
this formula.
facts to lean on. And I think whenever our abilities or our expertise come into question, I think it's really important to have solid facts to go back to. So it's pretty cool. And I didn't,
I
and I
love that.
have to preface all of that with, and I should have prefaced it beforehand. I have not invented these things. These things have always existed, but I guess what is unique is how I've approached a formula to encompass that in a way that makes sense to me,
Yeah.
and in a way that I've taught others, if that makes sense.
It's
Yeah.
just spelling out the understanding, whereas people probably intuitively
Yes.
recognized that or understood that. But when you write it out and you explain it and you teach it, we have these aha moments where it's so much easier to
Mm.
replicate it when we can see that formula, even though it's like, I intuitively, I know this is funny or not
Yes.
funny or what I should try to do, but it really does help to break it down. And I think that's what we have done in every single aspect of knowledge, right?
Big time.
Is break it down. And then, I mean, I went to grad school for social work, and I was like, everything I'm learning is common sense. Like, even some
Yeah.
of these methods, I was doing this to myself when I was in second grade, lying in bed with
Yeah.
anxiety and like creating coping methods for myself.
Yeah.
But because somebody sat down and wrote out this formula and said cognitive behavioral therapy, and this is how you help it, and this is how you do this, then it was a lot easier to replicate that and teach other people that skill. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just what it reminded me of. It's like, yes, people understand that you didn't create it, but you created this really teachable formula to help
Yeah.
others
Yeah.
that didn't intuitively pick it up,
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
wanted it to be really simple because I wanted
Yeah.
it to give such a boost of confidence to anyone that was using it, so that they really could lean on it and go, this is the facts, man. Like, you're
So,
out here telling me I'm not funny, but I know that what I did was demonstrate surprise. B,
mhm.
you laughed as a response to that, or someone laughed in the audience as a response to that. Therefore, I was successful as a comedian in that moment. I did nail that joke in that moment. And having that, particularly when you're in tough rooms or sexist rooms or racist rooms or whatever room you're in. If you're in a tough room where people aren't on your side, but you have someone that laughed and responded, that's a really good indicator then for you to be like, no, it was successful. And then how do the other elements come into play that are reflecting back my art to me?
If one person's laughing, it's successful, right? That's
100%.
your people. That's your
Yeah.
people right there.
Yeah.
So, can I ask this question?
Yeah.
What was your most awkward moment in stand-up comedy? Or are there too many to tell? Or like what
Oh,
does that feel like inside maybe? I don't
I
know what's the
mean,
right question to ask here.
we're just peeling the onion. No, I love. I think stand-up comedy is the best training program to becoming a human because you. It is so good because people will just tear its skin off you until what's left is just like your bare bones, and you're just like, this is who I am. They'll just tear your flesh. They'll just take everything that they need to take until you're just there, completely vulnerable in your humility, and just like, this is it. This is all that's inside of me. Hope that's enough, and
Right.
that I think is the best gift because it means that you learn to accept who the hell you are in the world.
Yeah, you're unapologetically yourself,
You have to
right? And
be. Because even if
not
you try
caring
and
what other
hide
people
it,
think.
people are going to get to the core of you if you keep showing up.
That thick skin that you grow just helps you to not care what other people think. You're like, this is just who I am. When you've been on that stage in front of
Yeah.
everyone and bombed, and then it's like, well, how much lower can I go from here? This is who I am, and I don't care what anybody thinks, right?
Do
I
you
can
know
walk
what?
down
Do you
the
know what?
it's got to be liberating. I'm myself
It
now.
doesn't feel
Yeah.
like it at the time. I'll tell you.
No.
Um,
It's so brave. It's so brave.
it's so interesting though. I wonder about the phrase thick skin because I feel like it may be misleading because I don't feel like I've got any skin at all. I
You
feel
said
like
you're
that's
just
the
like
thing.
bare, totally bare.
Because once everyone's taken everything from you, there's nothing left to take.
Mm.
You know
That
what
is
I mean?
the true essence of being authentic,
You
right?
realize that you're okay. Everyone's taken everything from you and still you're okay. It's
Yeah.
pretty
And
cool.
thick skin is saying you're guarded still. You're like, I got thick skin. I don't care what anyone thinks, but it's more like a protective factor.
Yeah, I think, well, if we're using thick skin as I love that we're diving into this, but I think this is really interesting.
We're getting
But
philosophical
it's so
here.
interesting to me because I think it was, yeah, I never resonated with that and I'm trying to work out why. And I think, okay. What it is it's a stripping of the ego. So everything that people can pull apart or pull you up on or whatever, it's all ego. It's all ego and what we identify with. So once everyone's sort of taken everything away from you and none of that's left, there is nothing, it's not protection, it's not thick skin because there's actually nothing to protect anymore. Your value and your comfort of just existing is just in just like being just a spirit, just like, yeah, I exist, I'm here. That's not ego. So people can't actually touch that. And that's the realization that you learn out of it all is that what is truly us, just our essence, our spirit, is untouchable because it's intangible. It'd be like saying I can punch the air, I can hit it. You can't touch what doesn't you can't touch the intangible, you know what I mean? So yeah, you can rip someone apart about them not being funny or how they look or them not being good enough or them not being worthy. Whatever, that's all ego stuff. So sure, have it. Take it. Take whatever you want from me. That's not spirit. It's not the essence of who I
It's
am.
not who you are.
It's not who you
Yeah.
are.
That's why you said this is the training for being a human
Exactly.
because you're
Like
just
you can
stripping away the ego. I get it
100%.
now.
Because you can be so unfunny. Yeah, I can. Some days so unfunny. Some days I bomb, and not just at comedy, at life. And some days I wake up and I'm like, who's that gremlin in the mirror? And I'm like, oh Jesus, it's me. Some days you're stupid as well. Some days I'm like, where was my head today? Whatever, it's all ego. And the cool thing about ego is it's changeable. So you can wake up one day, be terribly unfunny, wake up the next day and be terribly funny. When you're not attaching to that, people can take all
Yeah.
of that. Let them take it. Let them roll with it. Let them. It's not your essence. It doesn't define you. It doesn't define what you're capable of, what you can do, who you are, anything.
I think that translates to all art,
Yeah.
all creativity, all skill, even, where you have on days and off days. And so many people hold their identity to what they do. And so when they have an off day, they take that to really beat themselves up. Like, I am not good enough or not worthy enough because this thing that I do is off today instead of who I am. So I love your analogy of just like stripping it down and the essence of who you are. So deep. Whoever
But
thought comedy was so
yeah,
deep?
yeah, but then you've got to practice it. You have to,
Yeah.
you have to get up each day, and no matter how hard each day is, you have to just sort of be with yourself and go find a deep sense of in your spirit. I can do anything. I am everything. I am well. I am full of potential and possibility. I am my potential and possibility today. Anything I put my mind
Mm.
to is mine. And when you nurture your spirit, no one can touch that. So then when that's full and that part of your cup's full and nourished, it's like it doesn't matter how poorly you perform that day because that was just a
Yeah.
day. You don't cling and latch onto this idea that you're always the funniest person in the room. Because the thing is, once you cling to these ideas that are set and not malleable and not connected to your essence, you put your power outside of yourself and you leave that up for grabs. So anybody can come and take that from you then. This is why I
Yes.
don't buy into stuff when I'm working with someone and say I'm training in something, whatever, and I'm being mentored by other people or being taught by other people. Doesn't matter what it is. If they stroke my ego and say one day that I'm amazing at this or I do this better than other people or anything that's ego related, I let them. I can't control what other people say to me. But do I latch on or do I make that my truth? No. I just go, okay,
Hmm.
whatever. Because I know well and good that the very next day I can wake up and maybe while I'm training or learning something, they'll be like, actually, you're really bad at this. You're actually the
Yeah.
worst person in the room at this, or you're not strong at that. That's a real problem. And if I'm in the habit of just latching on to what other people give me, I've already given my power away. I've let them write my narrative for me. But that means that the minute their ego's compromised and they decide that they want to take me down or they're just reflecting their own insecurities, that means my sense of self is attached to someone or something
Yeah.
that they can drag down or pull apart. And so it does come back to that concept of like, where are you placing your value? Because if it's externally on what things look like or how well you might have done on any given day or your rank, you're very fragile. You're one strike away from someone just imploding your empire. If you just nourish your spirit and you live in that essence and you know that's the core of you and everything else can go up and down and all over the place, then
Absolutely.
like it comes back to that thing. Anyone and everyone can take anything from you. They can never actually get anything that matters. Like it's not a loss.
And just being so grounded in knowing who you are at the
Yeah.
essence. And yeah, I love that because so many times we're told, like, to ignore the haters or whatever. But no matter what you do,
How do you
there is
apply
going to
that?
be,
That's
you have to ignore the praise
like
too.
let's talk about it because like how do you apply that actually? It's so
That's a good
vague.
question. Well, you
It's
teach
so
us because you're the
yeah.
one that's going on stage. Even the praise, how do you ignore that when you do look for that validation when you're really feeling vulnerable and it's like, oh, I got the laugh or I got the like or I got the praise for this. We kind of need that to keep going, to stay motivated in whatever we're
So
creating.
that's what it does teach you is it teaches you how to not need it.
Yeah, you just do. You just go out and
Yeah.
do it.
So you can tell a joke from a place of needing that validation, or you can tell a joke from being fine and you're just telling a joke because you can, and you may or may not get that validation, and either way it won't matter because you just told a joke because you can.
You're just doing it because you can.
You know what I
Ah, that's a wild concept.
mean? I'm just like,
I
hey
mean,
patriarchy, hey Western philosophy, let me just.
I know. You just do things because you can. Like, why not?
You have to do it from that place, otherwise you are so at the mercy of others.
How?
How? Well,
Yeah.
you have to feel that, don't you? You have to. Well, what that like? Let's look into that further. That means that there's a wounding that needs healing and tending to first.
Hmm.
Because if you're relying on somebody else to put a salve on something, like that's what we're talking about, right? If you need it,
Yeah. The validation.
that means that implies that you don't have it. So, what is it that you feel you don't have? And if what you feel you don't
Yeah.
have is the gift of making people laugh and feel good, then how do you tend to that inside and soothe yourself and let yourself feel that you can make people feel good? And let
Yeah.
yourself feel that you can make people laugh.
Yeah.
So, what do you need to do in order to generate that? And part of that is about going out and trying it and trying to make people laugh or whatever, but that's not going to be the whole, that's not going to cover it all. That's
Yeah.
only going to be part of it. The other part of it is going to be feeling it all on the inside, feeling the disappointment and the sadness when it doesn't work, and
Yeah.
feeling the failure when you didn't. And then asking questions, and going, why didn't that work? Oh, I don't think it worked because I'm still feeling like I can't. And then feeling the sadness of like, damn, that sucks that I feel like I can't. And then feeling the anger of like, why can't I? And then remembering it was because some tosspot told you when you were 5 that you're not funny and you should shut up. And
Yeah.
then there's the sadness, and then there's the grief, and then there's the anger of like,
Yes.
how dare they? And then there's
Yes.
the righteous anger, which is like, stuff them. I was funny. I remember that joke. I told him it
Hmm.
was really freaking funny. And then you go, it was them. It was always them. And then you go, maybe I am funny. And then all of a sudden your cup or your healing, you're beginning to heal and you're beginning to feel that sense of, no, I am funny. And then you go to crack a joke. And then when people laugh, that's like that final affirmation then in that healing of like, yeah, see,
So it's coming down to
I
that inner child healing of where is this root of this need for validation. And I mean that's what I do with clients. So I 100 agree with that
am.
validation piece. But I think there's another side of art that isn't about ego in wanting that validation. I think it's about community. You know,
Yeah.
because a lot of times we share art to be like, this is how I view the world. Do you see it like me? And that validation is
Mm.
about feeling not alone in the world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not always about, oh, I want to be known as great or wow, she's gifted or talented. It's more like, wow, I vibe with you and I get your perspective. And that's more about community than
Yeah.
putting yourself on a pedestal because you're
Yeah.
sharing this perspective. And so I think in that sense, the validation, I think that's a healthy I think that's
I think that also comes from a wound, if we're being real. I think it
oh
also comes from the wound of feeling alone. So who and what in our life so far makes us feel like we're isolated and alone? So much so that we have to come
yes.
together to see each other, to hear each other, and to do something to engage each other and bring that connection back. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, you know, talking about wounding, I mean, I'm going to draw on my Pilates now and like training knowledge. But like when you're getting stronger and you're building and enhancing and growing your muscles, they have to tear, they have to wound before they get back together and heal and then get stronger. Like I think this is part of being human is that we wound each other and we hurt each other to different degrees. And part of that wounding and hurting often is isolating ourselves and each
Yeah.
other. So where that wounding then lies is that need for that healing and that coming together and that community. Because
Yeah.
if we didn't feel alone in the first place, we wouldn't feel such a strong need to
To
come
create that
together.
community. You're right. I mean, needing community is a human experience, and that's not bad in itself, but if you are seeking it, that means you don't feel it, right? Okay, I
Yeah,
get what you're saying. But that's why wounded people make the best artists. We all know that, right? Like
yeah,
if you're a great artist, you got
yeah.
some issues.
But I don't know. There's so many negative judgments and connotations with the word wounding, and it's like
Everybody's
it's a
wounded.
part of life. It's a part of
Yeah.
life that will get bunged up and get bruises and breaks and things. It's just like it's the minute you leave the house in the morning, there's a lot of things a lot of mishaps can happen. you know?
True. It is the human experience, right? We're
Yeah.
all going to be wounded somehow. So, going back to you not attaching to an identity or this
Mm,
outcome. So, all I know you for is your stand up comedy through social media. But
yeah.
right now, you said you've taken a break from the coaching, the course that you used to help others with, and you've also
Mm,
taken a break from your comedy show right
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So, what is going on in this season of your life, or where are you putting your creative energy into?
The last comedy show I did was about a month ago, and at that time, I just took stock of everything in my life. And for a long time, my finances have really needed attention for a long, 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 long time. And all along the way, throughout my artistry, I'll do what I can, obviously, to tend to that garden as well, to make sure that I have what I need and etc. But I've experienced a lot of financial blows over the last many years, and it's had accumulated to just like a melting point for me. So this season for me over the last month and the following month has been about training outside of the art sector so that I can get some qualifications that I can then utilize to help fund my art and fund my
Yes.
future
Yes.
and get back into a green zone with my finances, and as well as working a couple of jobs outside of the art that I make in order to get back into the green as well. So it just was a case of
Yeah.
going, there won't be the time for the next month or two. But as somebody that's sort of practiced my art pretty diligently for a lot of years, it just was a point where I had to recognize that that's what the needs are right now.
I appreciate your honesty in that because I think a lot of people just want to portray like look at these great things I'm doing, and everyone else who's watching is like, why are they successful? Why are they doing all the things
Mm.
they love and making it work? And the reality is there's a struggle. We're all in the grind, you know what I mean? And yes, there are really successful people out there, but when you are really trying to pursue unconventional dreams like
Mm-hmm.
stand-up comedy, or like for my husband where we moved here to Atlanta so he could pursue film acting, and while we're also trying to make a living to provide for family, there are some real difficulties in that where until you're getting that full-time income from it, right? So but it's all part of your creating funds right now. That's part of the creative journey. You're creating
It is
funds
the
and you're creating more
creation.
knowledge, skills, certifications, right?
Creating safety. I mean, it's
Yeah,
creating
creating
safety.
safety.
And that's kind of
Yeah.
like a lot of healing for me too. I think as an artist, I sort of wore it as a badge of honor for a long time, being like, I put my art first. No matter how stressed I
Mm,
am about my finances, no matter if I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay rent next week, I put my art first. And for a long time, for a while, that felt like character building. For a while, that felt like building resilience and strength to the struggles and challenges of being an artist, an entrepreneur, and coach and business owner. Um, but there is a long term toll to that as well. So I think while it's helpful to practice some risk. What's the word where you feel resilient in the face of risks or
risk adverse? No,
yes,
that's not it.
no the
No, that's
opposite
the
of
opposite of
that.
that.
um, that is definitely a skill. That's definitely something that's required of artists. Like we have to be able to have the muscle of taking risks and
Yeah.
letting things be at stake sometimes. But there's a difference between training that muscle and knowing that you can utilize that muscle when you absolutely need to, and having to
You
live
don't
in that
have to live
state
like that all the
consistently for
time.
years. And I did live in that state
Yeah.
consistently for years, and it's okay. And there's grief that comes up. I mean, I can sit back and go, why do other people have that and I don't, or da da da. Some people do have the privilege of not having to deal with that stuff. I mean, if you come from a lot of support and financial backing, you'll never have to build that muscle the same way. You may have a successful arts venture or business or whatever, and be able to just survive off that forever. And there are some people with that privilege, and I think we have to be fair and real about that. That is a privilege and that does exist. But we also have to get comfortable with that and accept that and love each other and love the ones that have that privilege for that and not be resentful.
Yeah. Yeah,
And we also
absolutely.
have to accept that there's a lot of grief connected to being a person without that privilege, or
Hmm.
being a person that doesn't have that, doesn't always have that ability. And I think I'm able to see things that way and learn that based on being someone that's moved in and out of having that privilege. And so I am grateful for both perspectives and vantage points on that, because I know that while I've been able to invest intensely into my art, there's even a privilege in being able to choose to take the risk every week for rent. Like, there's even a
Mm,
privilege in that,
right.
because if you're homeless and can't afford food ever, you
Yeah.
never have that
You're
privilege.
yeah. There are
It's
it's
okay to
relative,
laugh.
right?
Like, I'm not
The
laughing at that situation. I'm
privilege is
laughing at
relative.
the absurd context that we live in, which is that
Yeah.
there are some people in the world that will never have to think about that once in their life, and there are people that is their life, their whole life. So
Every day. Yeah.
yeah, art is a privilege, and it
Art
doesn't
is
mean
a
that's fair,
privilege.
but
So true.
man, it is. And so I just had to get comfortable with the fact that that's what this season is. And I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like financial stability
Sure.
is at the bottom,
Yeah.
which is our safety and our security and our basic needs. And it's not good for artists to not have those needs met, because everything does sit on top of that. So
Mhm.
for an artist to thrive, that needs to be really solid and grounded. And my new
Yeah.
perspective of that is you just have to do whatever you can and have to do to get that as an artist.
Yeah. And not make it mean anything
Yeah.
like about your art. You're not less of an artist if you
No.
have to go and get this day job and really grind at it for a
100%.
season and step
100%.
away from your craft for a minute because you're taking care of your basic needs. You are still a stand-up comedian. You are
Yeah.
still this artist,
Yeah.
and that it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
And I think that while I understand the need to buck against that system, while I understand the need to grieve and be angry and upset about that and righteous about that and say, I shouldn't have to, I don't deserve to, or whatever, what I will say is the sooner that you can accept that and offer that part of the experience love, the sooner you will eventually be able to elevate above that. So if you're
Yes.
resisting and angry and upset and refusing and kicking and screaming about having to do a full day job to make what you want to make, you're only robbing yourself of your time and your energy and your focus. The sooner that
Hmm.
like we can go, this is my reality right now, and I'm going to offer it love, and I'm going to do the absolute best I can with it. All right, let's now strategize. What are we doing from
Yes.
here? The better off a person's going to be. So
Acceptance.
yeah. I know that this gets talked about a lot in arts circles and entrepreneurial circles and creative circles, and there's a lot of nuance to
Yeah.
that discussion that I think we need to have too.
Yeah. Yeah. That acceptance of just doing what you got to do and do it
Yeah,
in the name of your dream. It's not giving up on your dream. It's
exactly,
it's part of the
exactly.
building
It's a
block
part
towards
of
your
it.
dream.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
that's
so
so
you
true.
nurture it the same because it is a part of it.
You nurture it the same. Oh, I love that language.
And if you can,
Yeah.
you'll do everything that you can to make sure that even though it's a day job, that it's not just a day job. Like, you'll do everything that you can to mean that when you do get to that 9 to 5 or whatever, there is meaning in it for you. And if it's not the same
Mhm.
meaning as your art, it's something else that has meaning to you. Because we're still human beings, and we still need nourishment. We still need to feel
Yes.
like we care about stuff.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah,
finding the meaning in it. I
yeah.
didn't know I would get so much wisdom out of you. I just feel
Oh, I
like
hope
we had
that's
this long
okay.
coaching session. No, it's so good. So many nuggets of wisdom and deep intellectually stimulating conversation. I loved it and I could go on and on with you, but I think we're going to have to schedule a
Sure.
second interview
Oh, I just looked at
because
the time. I just
we
needed to
have
chat, to be
so
honest.
much. There's so much more I want to talk to you about. We haven't even hit ancestry, and I know that's your passion. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna do this again because I've loved this, and I loved all of the deep understanding that you have extracted from your experiences with
Yeah.
art and I guess the struggles that you've gone through with that. With that being said, where can people find you if they want to follow you? Because I know you're going to be on stage again eventually. I know you're going to be creating and doing other things.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. It's been such a pleasure, and I think I've just been in such a stage of introversion and reflection, deep reflection. So it's been so nice to have the outlet to share some of the things that I've been cooking on, and I've learned so much from you just listening and from your feedback as well. And yeah, if people want to find me, I like using Instagram now. I don't really do Facebook that much, although they can follow me on Facebook too. I don't do TikTok. It's not my vibe. I just can't get my head
I've
around.
tried. I can't
I
get
just
into
can't get my head
it.
around it.
So, Instagram.
Instagram, Dorothy May official, and the humor experiment. And so through those pages, like I'll release ticket links and things in the future and stuff. And they can jump on a mailing list. So if you want, just DM me your email. I'll add you to mailing lists for like ticket offers and other things I'll do in the future.
I've loved our conversation. Thank you. Thank you for your authenticity, for your nuggets of wisdom, for your good energy. I know we're going to connect some more. This has been so good. Is there any last words that you have for the Renaissance achievers?
Well, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to have a chat. I really needed it, to be honest. It was like a little
Oh,
angel sent to me today because I just really needed it, and just to focus on the things that matter as well. And this is my dog, Honey June.
hi,
But I
Honey
also call
June.
her Buffalo Bill. Oh, she looks a bit sad. We're gonna go for a walk, I promise. Oh, I call her Buffalo Bill. Um, I also call her Puppuccino, Margot Doggy, because she's as cute as a little dog model, for Margot Robbie. And yeah, if anyone listens to this and resonates with it and sees themselves in it, then that's going to be really cool. And, at least they'll know they're not alone, right? Right?
Yes. Community, the community.
Exactly. We'll be healing
That's why
together.
we share. Thank you for being here.